welcome back to the Sunrise. It's 29 minutes past 8. Well, now we're joined by Mr. Jeffery Hawkins, who is the U.S. Consul General in Lagos. We'll be talking about a number of issues here today. Morning, thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
All right, let's start off with this. We understand this part of U.S. engagement with Africa. You have the Leadership Summit and you have the Young African Leadership Initiative. Let's start off with that Leadership Summit. What is that about?
Sure, happy to talk about that. There are a lot of really exciting things going on right now. And the Obama administration is very focused on Africa in some very positive ways. At this moment, as we speak, we're wrapping up a huge engagement with our Young African Leader Initiative fellows who are in Washington right now. 3-day conference is happening as we speak. It's finishing today. President Obama is meeting with 500 young people from around the continent, including about 50 Nigerians. And they've had a wonderful experience, several weeks of engagement at American universities around the country, engagement with the most senior levels of the U.S. leadership, Secretary Kerry, our ambassador to the UN, and then they'll come back here and we'll continue that engagement. And that's all about our commitment to the future of this continent, to the young people of this continent. Then we segue August 4th through 6th to the African Leadership Summit, and this is probably the most significant presidential engagement with the continent ever. We're going to have about 50 heads of state. We're going to have CEOs from across the continent. We're going to have civil society and others joining the president in Washington to address some of the most crucial issues on the continent. And the theme there, again, is sort of looking at the future of the continent, looking at the next generation. So an emphasis on youth, but also an emphasis on business opportunities, on security, on democracy and government. A lot of really good stuff going on.
So there'll be some political discussions?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, at times, and again, we've always talked about politics, talking about government, but let's key in one sore point, which is on security that has actually bothered the continent. What will be the focus, if I'm to put it that way, of your government in terms of security on the continent?
Right. Well, I think that the president's intention is for this not to be a series of lectures or speeches, but a real dialogue. And so we'll have the most prominent leaders from across the continent there, and they'll talk about these things. I think certainly in a Nigerian context, some of the security challenges that the country and the region, West Africa, faces will be front and center there.
Like Boko Haram.
Like Boko Haram, yeah.
So, you know, I'll go back to the Chibok issue because your country, finally agreed that, that's a terror group. It took time. A lot of people were a little bit worried how that time came. But we have some of the experts here in the country. And the question is, by now, you know, they've always thought by now we should have been able to get something positive in terms of getting the girls back. Is there anything you would want to share with us on that?
Well, obviously, the Boko Haram issue is a big one. It's very important for us, and it's something that we're very interested in working with the Nigerian government on. The Chibok girls, their abduction caught the attention of the international community in a way that nothing else had previously to that. And so as terrible as that is, and as much as we hope and pray for the return of the girls shortly, at least it played that role of generating sort of an international interest. The U.S. government interest in assisting Nigeria with Boko Haram predates that. We've been engaged for a long time with the U.S. government. 3 individuals from Boko Haram were designated as terrorists in 2012. We designated Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization in 2013. We have an extensive engagement with the Nigerian government on security side, which has ramped up since the Chibok girls have been abducted and extended in some new areas, particularly intelligence sharing and other things, that we hope will assist the Nigerian government deal with the problem that the Nigerian government needs to confront, and that's the security challenges in the north of this country.
Is there any plan to go beyond sharing intelligence security-wise now?
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't want to suggest in any way that our engagement is limited there. We're working with security forces on professionalizing security forces, working with the security forces on human rights issues and dealing with the civilian population up there, working with the police forces on things like IED detection, and there's a range of engagement across a whole series of security-related areas, and then a much wider engagement focused on the north, because we believe that the security problem is serious, but that is not the only aspect of the problem. That really there's a much wider sort of problem of development and engagement with the people of northern Nigeria that needs to be addressed too, and we're very much interested in working in education, agriculture, and other areas, health, to try and help the Nigerian government address some of the root sort of problems that create this sort of desperation that would lead people to do the sorts of heinous things that Boko Haram does.
Do you also share information with our government about possible sources of funding for this group?
Well, I'm not really sort of going to talk about specific, intelligence sharing operations, but let's just say that we really are interested in providing the Nigerian government with useful information that they can use to appropriately respond to the Boko Haram threat.
And when we talk about security, you can also tie that to democracy, to governance, to elections, and people are so worried about the general elections which comes up next year.
Yeah.
And we also have one here, which is just a couple of days from now, the Osun state elections.
Right.
Is the U.S. also concerned about our general elections, or even the small big one in Osun state?
Yeah. Well, I would say this, we certainly want to see the Nigerian democratic experiment succeed. This country has made a great deal of progress in the years since 1999. It is absolutely in Nigeria's interest, and it is absolutely in our interest for this country to have good elections in February 2015, peaceful, credible elections that the Nigerian people accept as reflecting their will. We have done a lot to help with that. In particular, we have a very significant engagement with INEC, with the Electoral Commission, and support them in lots of ways. We have focused a great deal on these last few gubernatorial elections. So Ekiti, which was just a little over a month ago, now Osun. Because we think those elections will tell us a lot about how prepared INEC is, about how much they've learned from earlier contests. And I will say that I think, generally speaking, the Ekiti election, the signs were positive there. Security was good. There weren't any incidents. INEC performed a credible job. The incumbent lost the election and the next day conceded defeat to his opponent. And I think that says good things about the preparations. We'll see in Osun if that cycle sort of repeats itself, that will be promising. But of course, the big show in February is going to require a tremendous amount of attention and effort on the parts of the security services of INEC, the political parties, and we really do hope that everyone can behave responsibly and appropriately in that crucial event.
Do you also reach out to political parties in terms of the kind of comments they're making now and the kind of implication it will have on either the Australian elections or the general one?
Absolutely, and one of the things that the ambassador, myself, and our leadership in Washington have been very focused on is the threat of violence. And we've been very concerned by some representative political parties in the past that have suggested that if the elections didn't go their way, that violence might result, and we don't believe that that's responsible, because it doesn't matter how good the elections are, it doesn't matter how competent INEC is, if elections are marred by violence, those are not good elections. And so the political parties have an absolutely key role to play, and they need to behave responsibly, and we've made that very clear.